Hi, I'm Sara Jones, Executive Director of the Innocence Project of Minnesota. Welcome to the 2020 Benefit for Innocence, the annual celebration of our work and of all of you who make our work possible. I'm sorry we can't gather in person today, but I hope that you'll enjoy this wonderful program that we've put together for you. Julie, Jonas, and I will start by sharing some of the successes of the Innocence Project of Minnesota this year. Then we'll move on to the Fund-A-Need portion of our program, and I hope you'll consider donating to support our cause. And we'll finish the evening with keynote speaker, Dr. Yusef Salaam, one of the Exonerated 5, a board member of the Innocence Project in New York, an acclaimed author, speaker, and policy advocate. So sit back and enjoy the program. Welcome to the 2020 Benefit for Innocence. As we begin our program, I want to thank our board members. Their tireless work and expertise drives our mission and makes everything we do possible. I also want to extend a special thanks to a true believer, Steve Renner, and his company ADX Labs. For 3 consecutive years, ADX has been our presenting sponsor. So thank you, Steve, and thank you to all your colleagues at ADX. I want to thank our other sponsors as well, whose names you'll see throughout the program. And I want to thank each and every one of you, whether you donate $10 or $10,000. We couldn't do it without each and every one of you. It wouldn't be right to start this evening without at least acknowledging the moment we're in, the national reckoning with racism and injustice. Our mission is to free wrongfully convicted people and to help prevent wrongful convictions in the future. Wrongful convictions disproportionately affect Black people, people of color, and Indigenous people. So within the scope of our mission, we strive to do all we can to make things better. We move forward case by case and policy by policy. Every case holds with it the possibility of mistakes, misconduct, or oversights. Every case also holds with it the possibility for true justice. Prosecutors know that their real job is not to get convictions, it's to seek justice. And in this spirit, I'm thrilled to be able to announce a new tool in Minnesota's ability to prevent, remedy, and address wrongful convictions. The United States Department of Justice has awarded a 2-year grant to the Innocence Project of Minnesota to establish Minnesota's first Conviction Review Unit, or CRU. The Minnesota CRU will be based in the office of our partner, Attorney General Keith Ellison. We also have early support from Ramsey County Attorney John Choi and Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman. I want to extend my sincere gratitude to Keith Ellison and his colleagues at the Attorney General's office for truly partnering with us in this effort. And I recognize the foresightedness with which the Ramsey County Attorney and the Hennepin County Attorney have indicated their support. I also want to thank my colleague, Legal Director Julie Jonas, for her research and expertise in putting together this program. This has also been an exciting year for our work in North Dakota and South Dakota. To establish our mission in those states, we wanted to turn to experts from those states to inform our work. And we have put together a fantastic group of people in North Dakota and South Dakota to help advise us as we move forward. They've agreed to be part of our new North Dakota and South Dakota committees. Our staff attorneys, Jim Mayer and Andrew Marquardt, have also been busy working with students at the law schools in those states to review and evaluate and litigate cases. With all of this work in North and South Dakota, we recognize that we've outgrown our name, the Innocence Project of Minnesota. We knew that we had to find a new name that would accurately reflect the breadth and reach of our mission. Our board member, Leah Harpster, put together a wonderful team of her colleagues at Thomson Reuters with branding and marketing expertise to help us develop our new name and our new logo. Also instrumental in this process is Emily Luxem, our Advancement and Operations Manager. I want to thank Leah, Emily, and all the members of the Thomson Reuters team for their hard work over these past several months. And now I'm excited to say that going forward, we will be the Great North Innocence Project. We are so excited to come to this point in the 3 years of work it's taken to develop our programming in North Dakota and South Dakota and become a truly regional innocence organization. Thank you to everyone who has helped along the way. We have a wonderful program ahead, and before I turn things over to our legal director, Julie Jonas, I want to be sure to thank Julie for her ongoing expertise and leadership in our work. I hope you enjoy the rest of the program, and I hope you'll consider making a donation to keep our momentum going forward. Julie?
Hi everyone, I'm Julie Jonas. I'm the legal director of the newly christened Great North Innocence Project. Thank you, Sara, so much for all of your hard work in making these changes take place. And thank you too to Emily Luxem for all of her work putting together this virtual benefit. But mostly I want to thank all of you at home for joining us for this evening. I know it's not what we all expected. We really wanted to be together with you, but thank goodness we have the technology to do this. And frankly, I'm guessing some of you are probably actually happy not to have to get dressed up tonight. Who knew everyone hated their pants so much? But seriously, 2020 has been a really tough year. As I was writing these remarks, I learned that Justice Ginsburg had died. So much public tragedy, personal loss, dissension in our communities, uncertainty about the future. But tonight is a night where we can all unite around a common cause, because I think everyone should agree innocent men and women should not be in prison, and we all need to do what we can to secure their release and to prevent wrongful convictions from occurring in the first place. And in that way, this year has been a remarkable year. We've seen so many wonderful things happen, both in the policy perspective and on behalf of our clients. So many wonderful things have occurred as we all worked from our dining rooms and living rooms and porches and guest bedrooms. On the policy front, we saw the passage of a law that will require law enforcement throughout the state to use best practices when conducting lineups. This will reduce the amount of mistaken eyewitness identifications, which are the #1 cause of wrongful convictions when looking at the DNA exonerations. This was a multi-year effort on the part of our organization, and we have so many people to thank for that. I personally want to thank our co-chair, John Kingery, for all he taught me about working at the legislature and for helping to keep me calm through all of those votes, and also for his tireless work walking the hallways at the state office buildings, educating legislatures about this important work. By the time it came to a vote, we had so much support from a variety of legislators as well as stakeholders. But most importantly, I have to thank our key legislative authors, Senator Bill Ingebrigtsen and Representative Dave Pinto, as well as Senator Ron Lantz, who has been our champion for a number of years. Thank you so much. We were also able to secure the release of 2 of our clients from prison this year. It wasn't the typical release. We did not get to host them for a wonderful dinner, and sadly, we can't introduce them to you in person tonight. But we were able to get them out early in the pandemic, so neither one of them got sick while they were in prison, and they could be home with their families, just like the rest of us. Ronnie Cooper was released largely due to the work of our newest staff attorney, Andrew Marquardt, working in partnership with his former law firm, Paul Weiss. Andrew had been working on Ronnie's case for a number of years when he came to work for us. Ronnie was convicted of a federal drug conspiracy case. His only connection to the drug conspiracy was that he happened to be married to the drug kingpin's sister. There were some numerous texts that went back and forth that were somewhat cryptic and puzzled law enforcement, but none of them indicated that there was a drug conspiracy or that Ronnie was involved in it. However, Ronnie was brought to trial in a multi-defendant case. The only real evidence against him was the testimony of 2 jailhouse informants, but he was convicted and sent to prison. After he was in prison for several years, a private investigator went out to talk to the second in command to the drug kingpin. And that man told investigators that Ronnie had nothing to do with the drug conspiracy, and he knew because he was basically the operations manager. And further, that he had told law enforcement that Ronnie had nothing to do with the drug conspiracy. When asked about those documents that would show that the interview with the second in command, the government said that they had inexplicably destroyed those files. As litigation on that potential Brady violation was ongoing, the two jailhouse informants recanted their testimony, and with that, Ronnie was released. And finally, I want to talk about Javon Davis. Javon Davis was exonerated in March from Hennepin County. This is work that we could not have done without the help of our former co-chair, John Hopeman, numerous students from the University of Minnesota, and also our staff, including the very talented Jim Mayer. Javon had been convicted of 2 counts of attempted murder, even though it was proven through cell phone records and cell tower data that he was miles away when the crime occurred. In addition, at trial, a key witness against him came in and said, in fact, Javon was not at the crime scene and he did not want to send an innocent person to prison. However, much of this evidence was mishandled by his trial attorney. We were able to have a hearing on the case last year where we presented testimony from 2 expert criminal defense attorneys who talked about the various ways the case was mishandled, and also new evidence developed by University of Minnesota Law School students of Javon's innocence. With that, the judge vacated the case and Hennepin County dismissed all charges against Javon, and he was able to go home and stay home and safe like the rest of us. These are things that we could not have done without your help. It's truly been a remarkable year, and we have our supporters to thank. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Javon Davis via video clip that he's recorded, the man who's made my year just a little bit better. Thank you all so much.
Well, when the police first brought me in for questioning, I was confused. What's making them say my name? I woke up in the one morning and my kids' mothers was calling me like, "Oh, the police just left my house looking for you. They say you got a warrant." But it was even more confusing. Like, what are y'all talking about? I didn't know anything. No, at the time I wasn't able to post bail. I waited a year, almost a whole year before I went to trial in the county jail. I never thought about pleading guilty. I wouldn't plead guilty to a crime I didn't commit. I met Mike Patton through like some friends. I was gonna hire some different lawyers, and some friends sent Mike down there, and we kind of talked, and he kind of like told me like, "Oh, you don't need a really expensive lawyer. This case, you know for a fact you didn't do it. I can tell, I believe you. I can tell by the cases that you are right. I won't charge as much." And at the time, I'm like, yeah, I can save money, and I know I didn't do it. I could have got up there and defended myself. That's how I really felt, really. Like, I didn't do nothing, so I don't care. So every day I used to be like, man, I hope they find out today that I didn't do this. So when I got the trial, I was kind of nervous, like they're really trying to prosecute me for something I did not do and it had nothing to do with it. So long as Mike presented everything that I told him that I know I didn't do anything and all the evidence, I should be okay. So I was a little confused. That's the best word on trial. I was confused. I was confused why I'm on trial for something I didn't do. I was confused of why Fred was asking Mike all these questions. I was confused why Mike told me the video was 5 minutes and it was 45 minutes. I was just confused. That's the best word to describe how I was at trial, confused. The proof that I was innocent was, I was talking to my then girlfriend on the phone. I was in Fridley, Minnesota at a place called Flameburger, and the crime happened downtown Minneapolis. And we know that exact time that I was on the phone that the shots fired because it was after a nightclub, so it was police downtown. So as soon as police heard the shots fired, they radioed shots fired. So we know the exact time from the Minneapolis Police Department. And so that exact time, I was on a phone call with my girlfriend on my cell phone in Fridley. Then I couldn't walk at the time, so I couldn't even run off. So whoever did the crime, they ran off. I couldn't walk. I could barely walk. I limped. I could not run at all, 0. So it could not have been me. I didn't know where Kibbe worked. I didn't know that they were going to commit the crime. I didn't give anybody any gun, any car. They didn't come to my house. I didn't know anything about this crime. I didn't know it was going to take place. I found out when the rest of the world found out the next day that somebody got shot downtown. When the jury came back with a guilty verdict, I felt so angry and mad and confused on like, why would anybody do this to me? Because I know I didn't have anything to do with it. So why would they do this to me? Like, and then I felt like the whole world was out to get me. I'm like, what is this? I felt like I was being framed. everything in jail, you could lose your life in jail. You'd be like, what? You don't know what's gonna happen to you, and then they say, oh, you're not getting out of 2033. Like, this is not my life. This cannot be my life. Me every day waking up in a prison, every day going to sleep in a prison for something I had nothing at all to do with. This cannot be my life. You might be angry this day. You might be emotional this day. You be lost. You be trying to ask yourself questions. You try to figure it out. And the whole time, the whole world is still moving, and you feel like your world is just spinning. You still tell the correctional officer you're innocent, or, oh yeah, you know how many times I've heard that? I've been working here 30 years. I've heard that 5 million times. I always had a penny for every time. If I had a penny for every time I heard that, I'll be rich. So they never believe you. They never believe you. Is there other innocent people in prison? Like, yeah, there's 2 people I know for sure, without a doubt, that they're innocent. And it's a messed up situation, and we talked about it a lot of days, and we all felt like a lot of people wake up in prison because they're mad because they want to be home, but we wake up mad because we're supposed to be home. When someone from the Innocence Project first came out to see me, I felt like, wow. I'm like, I knew the criteria was you got to be completely Innocence Project innocent, and I knew I was an Innocence Project innocent. So that's why I figured, like, man, somebody needs to help me. And when they came to help me, and when they came, I was like, oh my God, this can happen. That's when I finally got like faith back. Like, probably like 2 weeks before that, I was just lost, looking in the mirror like, what am I gonna do? I'm stuck in prison for something I didn't do. So what am I gonna do? And when they came, I was like, man, I got a chance. Like, oh, if they help me, if I can get them to help me, if I can convince them that I'm Innocence Project innocent, like I know I am, then I'm gonna be all right. I knew they believed me. I knew they never stopped like trying to help me. It was so many days I would just call them. I just knew. I felt so much comfortable. I felt like I had life again. So, and it happened. At first, I thought it was just gonna be like a little hearing. I go in and talk to the judge. Nobody's there. So once I got downtown and we talked about what was gonna happen, and it started happening, and we presented our evidence, I just felt so confident. And I would pick up the brief and read it from first page to the end. And I would just tell myself, this is what happened. These are facts. This is true. So how can anybody turn away from the truth? The wait was long. There's a lot of long days where I just felt like, oh man, they're never gonna let me out of here. Or, oh man, I got my hopes up. Or man, this just can't be true. I'm gonna be stuck here forever. When I finally found out my conviction was gonna be vacated. Oh man. So yeah, it was around 3 o'clock, and in prison you had count. We had the thing called count at 3:30. I remember Julie specifically kept saying like, man, I don't know you guys. Courts don't close to 5 o'clock, man. This thing can still come down. Just call and check in at 5 o'clock and let's just see. I got a call. And I remember calling Lena, and I called her. And when I called her, all she did was start reading the Scroggins' decision. So she didn't tell me whether it said vacate or I'm throwing it out or nothing. So I'm clinging on to every word she's saying. And then when she says, I hereby vacate, I went crazy, and I started yelling on the phone. I was ecstatic. It was like, I was crying on the phone. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, Julie, you said call back. I don't know. I remember you like, man, call back. This thing might come down today, man. I still think, and you just like, I really think that this thing is just gonna come down today. It did. Oh, when I finally got out of prison, out of jail, like the biggest weight ever was let off my shoulder. And it finally paid off, just sticking to it, knowing that I didn't do something and I wasn't gonna sit in jail for it. And it just was like, the best part about being home, being able to be with my family, my friends, my kids, and just being able to just live life, breathe air. In prison, a lot of days you gotta wake up on alert. You gotta be on alert. Anything can happen at any given time in prison. Being at home, you get to be with your family, and I get to see the kids, and I miss a lot of the kids' birthdays and holidays and everything special to them, plays, school, first grade. So just being home with the kids, being able to see them, hang with them. I just want to thank the Innocence Project of Minnesota, Julie, Jonas, John, Jim, Brandy, Rachel, Emily, everybody that helped me, Sara, everybody that helped me, everybody that believed in me. I love you guys. Thank you so much.
Friends, this is the time in the program where we all need to come together. Just as you heard from Javon Davis, one of our 2 exonerees this year, the work we do changes lives. Cases like Javon's rely on experts and private investigators to develop the proof of innocence needed to be successful in court. Many of these cases are not examined by experts in the first place, and in others, the understanding of science has changed over time, and experts are needed to present that evidence to the court. Please help us secure those necessary investigators and experts to free innocent people. Our goal is to raise $200,000 to help in this work and expand into the Dakotas. In fact, we're thrilled to announce that we've already received over $100,000 in donations. We're over halfway there. Our mission is to work to free the wrongfully convicted and prevent future wrongful convictions from occurring in Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota. But we can't do it without you. Please follow the link on the screen and make a donation right now. Help us reach our $200,000 goal. Consider donating at $5,000. $5,000 can pay for things like expert witnesses who can help present evidence in court. At $2,500, you can help fund DNA testing for a simple case, helping build the also very necessary proof of innocence. Did you know that $1,000 can provide 10 hours of private investigator services, a critical resource when building a case? If you haven't yet, follow the link on the screen and make a donation. As we come to our final levels, consider the $500 donation level. $500 can provide funds for attorneys to travel to North Dakota or South Dakota to meet with clients and law students. Maybe you would like to help us at the $250 or $100 level. Those levels help keep the lights on by providing funds for things like court file copies for research and policy research and projects, or even postage and delivery to get those files sent to our office during the pandemic. We all know how our lives have changed over the past 7 months, but our need for our work has not. Once again, if you haven't yet given, follow the link on the screen and make a donation. If you also would prefer, you can mail a check in if you don't want to donate online. Finally, if for some reason I did not ask for the level you want to give tonight, maybe you want to give more or less or something in between. Perhaps you want to enter whatever level you want when you're on that donation screen. Every dollar makes a difference, and you are making a real difference in this moment. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Terry Olson. I'd like to welcome you to the Innocence Project of Minnesota's annual fundraising gala. I'd like to quickly thank the donors that continue to show interest in this cause each year and support the Innocence Project, and welcome all you new donors for showing interest in this organization. Without you, I would not be sitting here speaking to you right now today. I want you to know that it's appreciated from the bottom of my heart. As without you donors, there is no hope for people in a situation such as mine. So again, thank you so much for being here. Please enjoy the gala's presentation and dig deep into those pockets if you can, if you will. It's so very much appreciated, as we need to keep the Innocence Project of Minnesota rolling and obtaining the release of others wrongfully convicted. Thank you so much. Have a good time at the gala. God bless.
Hi, my name is Michael Hansen, and without the Innocence Project, I would not have my children, my business, my innocence proven, my exoneration, and my life. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Yusef Salaam, one of the Exonerated Five. I'd first like to thank the Great North Innocence Project for having me at your virtual benefit for innocence in this year, 2020. 30 years ago, really 31 years ago, I was run over by the spike wheels of justice. And I'll never forget standing in front of the judge and delivering what I would consider my last words. And, it was really powerful. I was 16 at the time. And I started with these words. I said, I'm not going to sit here at your table and watch you eat and call myself dinner. Sitting here at your table doesn't make me dinner, just like being here in America doesn't make me an American. Let us begin. Stress is the anger that is built up inside. Rage is the anger that is no longer built. Taking on a sucker that soon you have killed. American free will doesn't mean you can kill. And take another person's life, you live your life trife. I'm a skill builder, so on skills I do build. Creative giving knowledge to this wise black man, soon to enhance my words across the land. I'm a smooth type of fellow, cool, calm, and mellow. I'm kind of laid back, but now I'm speaking so that you know. Got used and abused and even was put on the news without clues. Some gave clues, selling out like fools. Now check it. Who did what and who did who in? Put in a situation that you don't know what to do in. Some brothers go wildin', we're not down with them. Who would have thought I'd have to lock in? I stand accused. Checking the scene from how the situation was, instead of getting facts, the media made you blurred. Now the people don't know. All they see is the media. Never hear the blame because they're constantly deceiving us. The DA's wrong. This is her master plan. This case is not a case, it's just a crafted sham. Yo, instead of trying to get your name made, it's reconstructing the crime that really pays. Islam, La ilaha illallah, being supreme over Satan, but no man is Allah. Yes, I'm a science dropper on the righteous path, so how the hell could I take a rapist path? Think about that and then think about this. All my friends, it was me they dissed, they're dismissed. Cause I don't really need any friends like that. Like when I really needed you, where were you at? I'm not dissing them all, but the ones that I called that went and dissed me. Like I was an inch small, like a rat, a mouse, not even a man, wrongly accused. Like the knives in my hand. How does it look? Me clock, now I'm shook, but like Matlock, soon the accused gets off the hook. It's real when she remembers and says, damn, the cops did you in, I stand accused. You people stop. This racial disperse. Hey, yo, you seen that kid Benson? He's in a hearse. And so we now take it to the Benson hearse fields. West got bulletproof vests. We got no kinds of shields. How does it look? They killed the black man, being black. It's time we take a stand. In our situation, they saw our faces clear, but not mine. Not because of fear. It's because the black race was disgraced, and for the Muslim, they must have felt shame. But I'm not to blame with the words you bought. The media took our words to paper, the ones the cops distorted. I told the cops truth like this, and then boom, they were smacking my man Corey Wise in the next room. Now I know why the rosters can't stand the Bobby line. They never help, they just babble on. I used to think the people and cops were cool, but who protects us from you? I stand accused. And as I took my seat, the judge's face was so angry and angered at the audacity that I had to stand up and say what I said. I didn't realize that it was going to be a part of the court record. But for me, it was everything. It was my last stance. And I was ready and prepared to take whatever they were going to give me. See, I was run over by the spike wheels of justice. I wasn't supposed to be there. But what I found out, that instead of me just going through what I was going to go through, that I was actually going to grow through it. That I was being chosen for that very thing at that moment to be great and to add to the greater good later on in life. This case that became known as the Central Park Jogger case was really a tragedy of many proportions. Because on the one hand, you had the young lady that was raped and violated in a worse way and left for dead. And then you had 5 innocent people that were accused of this crime. There was a tsunami early on of media, over 400 articles written about us, ripping apart our lives. No one ever came up to us and said, hey, so what happened? How did you guys end up here? But it was really that opportunity that they were taking to make a broad paintbrush of all things negative in the Black and brown community. And unbeknownst to me, I still held all kind of hope that justice would prevail. I remember early on seeing Donald Trump take out a full-page ad calling for the reinstatement of the death penalty. And this was 2 weeks after we were accused of this crime. And for me, it was this unbelievability of this mogul that had been celebrated in the Black community that was passing judgment. Here we were, supposedly, we were supposed to be seen as innocent until proven guilty. But yet the whole system was looking at us as guilty, and we had to prove ourselves innocent. And I remember going into the prisons initially, and it was this murkiness surrounding the case. We had been the worst of the worst, the scum of the earth. People were writing us hate mail and things of that nature. One letter that I always share with people, which I think is perhaps the most damning, is a letter that is simply signed Captain Justice. And it says, to Yusef Salaam, this letter is to let you know that your name has been placed on the list of enemies of society by the Citizens Army, New York City branch. You made a decision when you became one of the pack that decided that Central Park was your arena and decided to violate and attack honest citizens who happened to be in the park. So just remember that even 20 to 30 years from now, some people will never forget. And maybe the one time that you don't check your back is the one time that somebody might just be there to say hello. The damaging effect that this case not only had on us, but really had on us as a society is still being something that we are still experiencing. As we have a front row seat right now to all of the oppression happening in America, it's a wonder that we continue to say, well, maybe this time things will be different. We've seen through the Breonna Taylor case that we still are waiting, holding our breath for true justice to be served. And in a similar way, we see that we're still waiting for cases like Emmett Till and justice to be served in that case. We became part of the modern day Scottsboro Boys, as we were related to. And it's weird because I had no knowledge of who the Scottsboro Boys was until I was run over by the spike wheels of justice. And then when we got the sentence and we were sent to the prison, it was the worst, undescribable experience that I can ever imagine. I remember driving up to the facility that they were going to put us in, and I was with Antron McCray. I was told I was going to be going to Brookwood, and he was going to be going to Harlem Valley. Harlem Valley, incidentally, was considered the worst prison that young people could go to. And as we hobbled out of the car, and I was shackled to my waist, and a chain link was shackled to my ankles, and I remember hobbling towards the front of the door and looking up at the window, and the windows were black. I thought they were painted black. And then they started to move. And as I looked at it, I said, wow, what is that? And it was the people that were there waiting for us. And the windows started to shake and the walls started to vibrate. And they were telling us that they were going to get us when we got in there. And I remember feeling so horrible. I remember tapping Antron and telling him, man, hold your head up in there, man. And he told me that that was my stop. I was going to the worst prison of the worst. And I remember being in there and trying to acclimate to prison culture and prison society. And I was told that you should never allow time to do you, but you should do the time, even if it's time that's unjust. You don't want to become a victim of time. And so I remember early on, I would shadow box, and I would be punching the air in preparation, really, for whatever was to come. And 6 months into my bid, this officer walks up to me and he asked me this one simple question. And this question I've always attributed to changing the total trajectory of my life. And that question that he asked me was simply, who are you? And I kind of looked at him strange, and young people always have, weird reactions to questions, even in some of the most damned of places. And I thought maybe he'd been living under a rock. And I said, I'm Yusef Salaam, one of the guys that they accused of raping the Central Park jogger, but I didn't do it. And to my surprise, he said, I know that. He said, "You're not supposed to be here. Why are you here? Who are you?" This question was so profound that I wrote it in my book of poems. And very succinctly, I answer it. And the title of it is, "Who Are You?" Searching to find who has come. A beautiful soul, a powerful one. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know that my path, my journey was picked for me long before I had come to this planet. And when you find your purpose, one of the beautiful things about it is that you realize that whatever they meant for evil, God meant for good. And when you ride in that purpose, there's a beauty that blossoms in life, that you found the why, as Nietzsche says. And so now you can live anyhow. So what I found out and what that led me to was really, it was like a Sankofa moment. And in Sankofa, there's this opportunity where you have to go back in order to go forward. You have to return in order to move into where you need to be. And I remember thinking, my mother and father named me Yusef. And I remember not knowing what that meant. I remember, as I was growing up, people would always say, "Hey, what's your name?" And I would say Yusef. And they would say Joseph. And like most people, you would get frustrated if somebody completely butchered your name. And so I felt like, man, wow, that don't even sound like Yusef. Like, that's not even nowhere near Yusef, But so many people had been calling me Joseph for so long that finally I used to just say, that's close enough. I didn't know that the further meaning of Yusef was past just the English derivative or the English equivalent to Joseph. That Yusef means God will increase. And as I was researching and studying who I am, I found out that 7 days goes by after the babies are born. So 7 days went by after I was born, and I was nameless for 7 days. My parents had to look at me, to observe me, to find out, who am I? And then on the 7th day, they called the people to a baby naming ceremony. And they finally told the people that my name was Yusef Idris Fa'adil Abdus Salam. And so as you can imagine, that's a pretty long name. That's like a whole sentence. And actually the definition of that name is actually a whole sentence. I found that Yusef means God will increase, that Idris means the teacher, that Fa'adil is with justice, and Abdus Salam is peace. And so if you put it all together, here I was in prison finding out for the first time that my parents named me God will increase the teacher with justice and peace. I knew at that moment that there was something that I had to do that was greater than what it was that I found myself in. That this was part of the process, this was shaping me. My good friend Les Brown, he always says that when you fall in life, it's not a matter of if you fall, but it's always when you fall. He said, when you fall in life, try to land on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up. I hadn't yet heard the words of the great philosopher Cardi B, who says, fall down 9 times, get up 10. And so once I heard it, it just all made sense. Life is about shaping you. It's about creating you to be one of the survivors, the most survivor of the what's the wording that they use? The survivor of the fittest. And it is you who, once you get it, you will be able to shine the light so that other people can see in the darkness. At 15 years old, being run over by the spike wheels of justice, I wanted the American dream, but I was woken up to the American nightmare. And nobody cared. That was the part that hurt the most. That they ran over me and ran over my family. And as I looked around, I realized that there were so many of us, so many families, so many communities that had these shared experiences of oppression, of injustice. And the beautiful thing was that I was finding out in prison that there was something that I was supposed to do about it. And here we are 31 years later, and I'm able to talk truth to power, to share my story in a space and in a way that uplifts people and really uncovers all of the negativity that is inherent in the current criminal justice system. Me being awakened at such a young age, it was a tough pill to swallow. And I say that because, we've been taught that we are the people. Constitutionally, we believe that we are the people. But what happens in this particular instance is the reality that speaks and says that you were never considered a person in the imagination of the founding fathers. You were still considered 3/5 of a human being. And so even in the founding documents of this country, we have the 13th Amendment, which really paints a really interesting picture to us. It basically says that even though slavery was abolished 150 plus years ago, slavery has been allowed to continue by another name through the Jim Crow system. This modern day cotton fields of sorts of the prison industrial complex that we are all fighting to have people who are innocent released from is what they have relegated most of the marginalized people to. It reminds me of man's inhumanity in man, failing to see that we are human beings, failing to see that we were born and we have a purpose. And the greatest thing that we can do as a people is to try to pour water into the greatness and onto the seeds of greatness inside of everyone. Because everybody who is young is going to be the caretakers of tomorrow. It makes me think about, what happens in most people's minds and how people unfortunately judge everyone by the cover and not by the content. And I was thinking about what I wrote with my co-author, E.B. Zaboy, in the book Punching the Air. And it's called Clone. Ever since that day in the 5th grade, my teachers watched me so hard, so close, that I felt like I was trying to break out of prison, even though it was just school. Every dumb thing I did, they thought it was because of trouble at home, an absent father, a tired mother, not enough books, not enough vegetables, not enough sleep. They believed those lies about me and made themselves a whole nother boy in their minds, and they replaced me with him. And I think that that's what happens most often. We think that everyone thinks the same way that we do. And if we happen to be privileged, then we can't oftentimes see the inhumanity and the injustice that goes on in the most marginalized communities. We have an opportunity here, I believe, to change the trajectory of justice in America and in our times. And I'm happy about that because I was thinking also about the words of my late, great appellate attorney, William Kunstler. And in this particular piece that I'm about to share, he talks about what happens in organized society. And he says that's the terrible myth of organized society, that everything that's done through the established system is legal. And that word has a powerful psychological impact. It makes people believe that there is an order to life and an order to a system. And that person that goes through this order is convicted. They have gotten all that is due them. And therefore, society can turn off its consciousness and look to other things and other times. He said, and that's the terrible thing about these past trials. They have this aura of legitimacy, this aura of legality. I suspect that better men than the world has known, and more of them, have gone to their deaths through a legal system than through all the illegalities in the history of man. 6 million people in Europe during the Third Reich, legal. Sacco Vanzetti, quite legal. The Haymarket defendants, legal. The hundreds of rape trials throughout the South where Black men were condemned to death, all legal. Jesus, legal. Socrates, legal. And that's the kaleidoscope of the nature of what we live through here and in other places. Because all tyrants learn that it is far better to do this thing through some semblance of legality than to do it without that pretense. When I think about this, the whole system, I think the biggest thing that we need to change is that we need to for one, we need to begin by reimagining what the criminal justice system is and what it could be. The worst thing that we are finding out is that the system is actually not broken, that the system is actually working exactly as it was designed. That truth, the truth of that statement becomes more magnified when you realize that in New York State, they give people prison numbers. And I'm sure all throughout the country, they give people prison numbers. But in New York State, the prison numbers give you a real clear idea and understanding of what's going on. So at 21 years of age, I aged out of the youth facility and they sent me to the big house. And going to the prison industrial complex, the adult facilities, they gave me the prison number 95A1113. One of the elders broke that number down to me one day. And he said that 95 is the year you came here. The next part tells you the time of year. A signifies January through June. B is July through December. And R means that you left and you returned. And here's where it gets really interesting. 1113. This meant that in February, I was the 1,113th person to enter the door. And it was only February. And so I think that as we begin to really fix what has been called a problem, is that we need to begin by examining all parts, evaluating everything, holding all people accountable, including ourselves, so that we can move forward in a productive way that includes the kaleidoscope of the human family. And then we can talk about more progressive measures. Because, America as a young nation has a lot to learn from the world. Because if we look at other countries and look at how their criminal justice system works, look at how their policing works, we can learn a lot, especially as a country where large amounts of people here are immigrants. We could learn a lot because we live right now in a country that is very punitive. We live in a country where when you get it wrong, you get it way wrong. The Central Park jogger case is only a microcosm of the macrocosm of cases just like it. They want most people to believe that this is an anomaly, that this is not business as usual. But the fact that the Innocence Projects and the Innocence Networks of America have been releasing people that have done decades of time unjustly is important to consider. Because as you look at it, you realize that a person in prison for one day unjustly is a day too long. So I spent 7 years in prison unjustly. And then I came home to parole. And then after that, I came into the Megan's list. And so really my prison bid was not a 5 to 10 year prison sentence. It was a prison sentence that was going to go on in perpetuity. 13 years after we were accused of this crime, the truth came out. And, when you look at the origins of what happened in the beginning, there was a tsunami of media ripping apart our lives. But when the truth came out, it was a whisper. I remember my mother describing, it was a whisper that she wondered if the rats in New York City had heard. It got little to no fanfare. People today still have this cloudiness of whether we were actually supposed to be let go or not. And the truth of the matter is that deoxyribonucleic acid freed us. That thing that people know as DNA was the litmus test that they had back in 1989 that proved that we had not done this crime. But yet they still turned a blind eye to that justice and continued to walk over us. It took another 12 years after we were found innocent for us to win some semblance of justice. And that was on the heels of our first film, The Central Park 5. And of course, just last year, we were able to release to the world When They See Us, which changed everything and gave us a platform where we were able to speak truth to power. And so what I urge people to do is to occupy all spaces. We need to stop playing checkers and we need to realize that we have to play chess. And this is not a short game, this is a long game. That means that we may need to prepare and plan, not just for our own generation, but for intergenerational curses to be broken by the things that we do. I remember when I was in California, when we first were screening the film, The Central Park Five. A young girl got up in the audience and she said, "Hey, I'm 13 years old. I want to become a cop. What advice can you give me?" And I swear the first thing that came to my mind was to tell her to run, to not be a part of the industry or institution that ran us over. But I realized that there are far more good cops than there are bad cops. There are far more good people than there are bad people. And so my advice to her, as I realized even further that I was speaking to the future, was that she do her job. I told her that on the side of cop cars throughout the nation, as I found in my travels, that I see the words "to serve and protect" in some variation, but that in New York they have added the words "courtesy, professionalism, and respect." And that if she could give us courtesy, treat us with professionalism and respect, she would be one of the best officers out there. To have inside yourself the purpose that you want to protect and serve humanity is a noble purpose. And if she does her job, she'll be one of the best people out there. And so my call to action is that as people understand what's at stake, they do their jobs to the best of their ability. They find places to occupy, whether that be the police departments of the world, whether that be being in the media, whether that may be just being a common citizen, but giving people the humanity that they deserve and not shirking their responsibility, because we can't no longer operate with a mob mentality. We have to be able to activate our personal responsibility in the group dynamics, which allows for us to be able to rise above any negativity that is going on, and we be the light in that darkness, making sure that we can find our ways forward. You know, one of the things I'm reminded of is in a speech that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said some years ago, when he was talking about purpose and finding purpose. He said something very interesting. He said, when you find your purpose in life, do it as if God himself called you to do it at this very moment. And instead of giving us a lofty idea of what that purpose could be, instead he said, if it is your purpose in life to be a street sweeper, sweep the streets like Michelangelo painted pictures. Sweep the streets like Beethoven composed music, like Leoton Price sang before the opera. Sweep the streets in such a way that nobody will ever be able to say there was a better street sweeper than you. Because when you find your purpose and you vibrate at that level of greatness, the world will become a better place because of you. So in conclusion, I want to share 2 poems with you. This one poem is a poem that I never edited. I remember walking down the corridor in Clinton, Dannemora, and all of a sudden it was like I was a vessel and the words were coming to me. And I remember asking one of my friends in the prison to give me a napkin. And I wrote down these words called, "I'll meet you in between Venus and Mars." In between Venus and Mars is the center of our attraction. Of those connected to the stars, hardly a fraction. It behooves man to work for the day when this will all end. Life is mortal, so follow the way of those heaven sent. Awaken and receive that which will give you life, or remain horizontal and never begin the flight. For the solution, I'll descend from amongst the stars, and I'll meet you in between Venus and Mars. And lastly, I like to recite my signature piece called "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised." The revolution will not be televised. I can remember when that statement made me sad inside. Too young to be in it. Now I couldn't even see it. Why? Why couldn't the revolution be televised? The last poets, Gil Scott-Heron. As I grew up, I began to see. They left theirs, and I too wanted to leave a mark on history. A man in half, and I wanted to bask in that task that set men free. But a revolution, the revolution, is where I knew I had to be. The revolution will not be televised. They didn't want to display the victory of those quote-unquote lesser men. The revolution will not be televised. Smile, I know, because I am the revolution.
Thank you so much, Dr. Salaam. And thanks to all of you for joining us for this program. I hope you enjoyed it. And that concludes the 2020 Benefit for Innocence of the Great North Innocence Project.